Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro denounced the media campaign being waged by the national and international far-right wing against the country. In Argentina, inflation in July stood at 4%, reaching 263.4% year-on-year. And Israel maintains its total siege on the Gaza Strip while negotiations for a ceasefire are taking place in Qatar. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro denounced the media campaign being waged by the national and international far-right wing against the country. During the inauguration of the Ludovico Silva Integral Diagnostic Center in Caracas, the Venezuelan head of state denounced that the international media has been in charge of spreading false information about the events of July 29th and 30th after the presidential elections in the country. Likewise, the Venezuelan head of state questioned the double standards of the social networks that have censored their account, but on the 29th and 30th allowed the transmission and broadcasting of violent scenarios in the country. In this context, President Maduro denounced the censorship in social networks and pointed out that their morality in transmitting the events of July 29th and 30th.
And it was broadcast live on TikTok. TikTok banned my account before yesterday because they said that I was broadcasting a scene with violent scene, and through which media they broadcast the violence. It was not through TikTok, it was live. I took my phone and I went into my account, TikTok account, when all the other accounts, when they send their messages, out of 10 accounts, 8 were live and direct, and I was looking at it. I was telling you, look, you have to go to the street. They're trying to burn down that. Please go there. Alert the popular powers. The police should go there. TikTok was broadcasting live. All the evidence that we have were provided by TikTok. The criminals, because they were trained, they were told to transmit, to broadcast all the violence actions live and direct, so to generate terror in the country, so that the people inhibited themselves and to go out to defend theirs. It was recorded and it was broadcast live on TikTok. TikTok banned my account before yesterday.
And we stay with the latest in Venezuela. The first vice president of the PSUV, Diosdado Cabello, denounced the far-right plans made with foreign organizations that attempt against the lives of sympathizers of Chavism. Let's see.
Today I received some information. I am sure that those who are here will understand it. It has to do with Patari. But I received the information that there are people coming from outside who are being paid off. Notice that one of the letters says it clearly, that they have contact with people from outside. It talks about Uribe, groups of hitmen. So, see what they are preparing. This information, see what they are preparing. And I denounce it because, ladies and gentlemen, we told you before the elections, take care of your children. Do not allow them to be manipulated. They had prepared the murder of young people for Saturday. Therefore, they are looking for people to generate violence and kill other people of their own.
Furthermore, Diosdado Cabello also recalled that the far-right fugitive from justice Julio Borges requested further U.S. and EU sanctions against the country in the year 2019, and that he is repeating the formula again this year.
Borges calls for skyrocketing international pressure on Maduro's regime in 2019, and in August 2024, Julio Borges stated that the international community needs to further press Maduro to achieve a political transition in Venezuela. Borges stressed the need that the U.S. and Europe put more pressure and forcefulness on Venezuela so that Latin American countries could force a political transition in Venezuela. Is there a difference? No, it's the same strategy.
And we go now to Uruguay, where students and social organizations march through the streets in commemoration of the Day of the Student Martyrs. As every August 14th, the union marched through the streets of Montevideo in memory of those who were victims of the police repression in 1968 and also of the students who were disappeared by the military during the last civil-military dictatorship. In the activity, there were also demands for a bigger budget at all levels of education. The date commemorates the assassination of Liber Arce, a student of the Faculty of Dentistry who was shot by the police during the student demonstration in 1968 in protest for the students' bus ticket.
Ideally, what we have been asking for many years, at least since 2018, is 6% for education. Today, there is a huge budget for the military, but education is only going down.
Scholarships are needed. The University of the Republic needs to continue to develop in the interior. The conditions need to be maintained and improved. The hours and salaries of teachers and civil servants need to be increased. And
now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Argentina, the National Institute of Statistics and Censuses, the INDEC, announced that inflation in July stood at 4%. Through a press release, the INDEC pointed out that the items with the highest increase were restaurants and hotels with 6.5%, together with alcoholic beverages and tobacco with 6.1%, caused by the increase in cigarettes. The statistical agency also stated that housing, water, electricity, and fuels registered an increase of 6.0% as a result of increases in housing, rent, and related expenses. And we continue in Argentina as social movements are participating in another rally while banging pots and pans against the food crisis and the serious situation of the most vulnerable sectors in the country. Protesters are gathering in front of the Human Capital Ministry to condemn the government cuts and denials of handing over food in soup kitchens. The Somos Barrios de Pie social movement noted that since Milei took office, 7 out of 10 families left a meal out a day. In addition, UNICEF warned that 1 million of Argentinian children go to bed without having dinner every day. In all, studies revealed that 54.9% of the population is poor and homeless rate amounts to 20.3%. Also in Argentina, the Public Prosecutor's Office announced that former President Alberto Fernandez has been charged with double aggravated serious injury and coercive threats against his ex-partner Fabiola Yáñez. During a press release, Federal Prosecutor Ramiro González also requested evidence to corroborate the materiality of the facts reported and to attribute to the accused for the crimes of physical aggression, threats, and abuse of power. In this sense, the prosecutor assured that Yáñez suffered a relationship marked by harassment, psychological and physical aggressions in a context of gender and domestic violence. González also added that this harassment took place in the context of an asymmetrical and unequal power relationship that was exponentially increased by the election of Fernandez as president of Argentina. We go now to Chile, where workers at the world's largest open-pit copper mine have been on strike since Tuesday. Through an official communique, the number of one union of Minera Escondida, hidden mining, that is in English, owned by the multinational BHP Billiton, declared that the demands made by workers were not accepted by the company. Due to the failure of both parties to reach a mutually beneficial agreement, the strike was voted by 99.8% of the 2,379 union members. The mobilized workers charged that the offer presented by the multinational was based on extension of working hours, loss of basic benefits such as food on site, and increased operational demands, among other points. And we continue in Chile, where Héctor Yatul, Mapuche leader of the Coordinadora Arauco Malleco, is in a critical condition after 70 days of continuous hunger strike in the Concepcion prison. The information was made public by his son, Ernesto, who emphasized that his father had previously participated in several strikes that progressively deteriorated his state of health. On May 7th, Yatul was sentenced to 23 years in prison, 15 years for incitement, 5 years for theft of wood, and 3 years for attacking the authorities. The 56-year-old leader went on strike on June 3rd, demanding the annulment of the trial against him, the release of Mapuche prisoners, and dignified prison conditions for members of the indigenous community. And representatives of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization affirmed that Brazil is close to leaving the hunger map. These results are due to social programs and public policies during Lula da Silva's administration. With more details, our correspondent Ignacio Lemos.
Around 733 million people in the world are food insecure, and extreme poverty is on the rise. But Brazil, Indiana 2023, was the country with the best result on the planet, and is at the exit door to the unhunger map. Lula da Silva's campaign promise for his third term in office is about to be fulfilled.
Brasil, en el periodo 2021-2023,
Brazil, in the period from 2021 to 2023, presents a value of 3.9%, the average for those 3 years. We work with a 3-year index, so we are very close to 2.5%, which is the value to get out of the hunger map.
In 2014, during Dilma Rousseff's administration, Brazil had left the hunger map. However, austerity policies, post-parliamentary coup, and Bolsonaro's administration, aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic, caused the country to return to that category. At the time, more than half of the Brazilian population was food insecure.
tenemos un 85%.
We have an 85% reduction in severe food insecurity, that which threatens life, as it was in the case of the Yanomami natives. We also had 17.4 million people live in moderate and severe food insecurity. This data showed that Brazil has all the conditions, even during this term of office of President Lula, to leave the map of hunger behind.
Currently, the production of commodities for export by agribusiness receives far more government resources than the budget for small farmers, despite the fact that the latter is responsible for most of the food produced in Brazil. In a context of climate crisis and global food price inflation, government procurement of family farming products could be the solution that feeds back into agrarian economies.
Hoy comercializamos 70 toneladas mensuales en nuestra cooperativa.
Today we market 70 tons per month in our cooperative. A little for local business and some for institutional projects, such as the food acquisition program. It is profitable for the producer, who has a small property to produce vegetables. It is a good project that also allows us to produce food that we consume every day.
At the same time, as pro-tempore president of the G20, Brazil is leading a task force to launch a global alliance against hunger and poverty that seeks to reduce inequalities between regions and countries. The articulation can count on the adhesion of countries outside the G20 group.
Ignacio Lemos y Julia Nasif para teleSUR.
In Bolivia, government and entrepreneurs held the National Dialogue for the Economy and Production to exchange proposals for the benefit of the country. President Luis Arce led the meeting that lasted more than 3 hours at the Casa Grande del Pueblo in the city of La Paz. The authorities gave a detailed explanation of the central problem of the shortage of foreign currency in the context of the external framework, as well as the national reality and the exchange rate issue. Meanwhile, the business sector made proposals for solutions that will be complemented until Thursday. The parties agreed to meet again on Friday in order to continue with a detailed analysis of the initiatives.
Valoramos mucho la disposición y apertura del señor presidente.
We appreciate the willingness and openness of Mr. President of the national government to listen directly to the concerns of the business sector and to attend to our proposals and initiatives. I would like to highlight the participation of all the sectors that make up the Confederation of Private Businessmen of Bolivia and salute the presence of the institutions of the productive sector of Santa Cruz, which accompanied this meeting, demonstrating the unity and coincidence of the business sector regarding the need and urgency to address the problems that afflict us, such as the dollar shortage, but also to propose structural and sustainable measures to strengthen the economy.
And also in Bolivia, the government approved a package of new productive and social measures in accordance with the commitment assumed under the National Emergency Economic Policy Measures Plan. During a press conference, the Bolivian government informed about the approval of a supreme decree for the import of equipment for the implementation of biodiesel plants with zero tariffs. In this sense, this new decree is intended to encourage biofuel production in the national territory. In turn, this incentive aims to increase the production of new crops, such as soybean, cusi, totay, among others, to be marketed exclusively to Bolivian fiscal oil fields for the production of biodiesel. We have a second short break coming up, but before, we invite you to join our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In the Middle East, Israel maintains its total siege on the Gaza Strip while negotiations for a ceasefire are taking place in Qatar. In this context, at least 6 people have been killed by Israeli bombardments in the cities of Gaza and Khan Yunis in the last few hours, one day after massacres that left around 40 people dead throughout the devastated coastal enclave. The latest figures from the Palestinian Ministry of Health stated that 40,500 people have been killed since the start of the genocide on October 7th, most of them children and women. And meanwhile, a new round of ceasefire negotiations in the Gaza Strip begins on Thursday in Doha, Qatar, in an attempt to curb hostilities between Israel and the Islamic Resistance Movement, Hamas, and secure the release of Israeli hostages held by the Gaza movement. The negotiations will involve representatives from Israel, the United States, Qatar, and Egypt, but it is not still known whether Hamas will be directly represented in the negotiations. U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesman Vedant Patel said on Tuesday that Qatari diplomats had assured the U.S. side that they would work to have Hamas representation at the new round of talks aimed at ending the conflict. And in this context, the Hamas resistance movement pointed out that there is already a proposal for a ceasefire and that Israel's acceptance is required for the agreement to be fulfilled, so that if there is no progress in its implementation, they will not participate in talks.
We expect to be told by the mediators that Israel has accepted what is being offered, and any meeting should be based on talking about implementation mechanisms and setting deadlines rather than negotiating something new. Otherwise, Hamas finds no reason to participate.
And the representative of the Palestinian resistance movement, Osama Hamdan, also stated that the Israeli regime resorts to massacres in Gaza to boycott negotiations for a ceasefire.
During the talks, Hamas was taking them seriously and responding, negotiating, and giving its opinion, but it was working towards a goal. The Israeli side either sent a non-voting delegation or changed delegations from one round to another, so we would start again, or it has imposed new conditions and often used the method of massacres, killing, and aggression to get out of the negotiation process.
In other news, U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesman Vedant Patel assured that the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Iraq was at no time under discussion in the recent rounds of negotiations between representatives of the two countries. Patel said that negotiations with Baghdad are continuing, building on earlier bilateral strategic discussions and moving towards what he called their mutual commitment to security cooperation and shared interest in regional stability. Hours later, former State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus tweeted that she had received comments from her sources about White House plans to announce soon an agreement to withdraw troops from Iraq. We move on to other topics. On Thursday, the Russian Emergency Ministry announced a declaration of the state of emergency at the federal level in the Belgorod province following Ukrainian attacks. In this regard, Russian Emergency Minister Alexander Kurenkov stated that the measure came after a meeting of the Legal Commission for Emergency Preparedness, Response and Security, at which the situation in the Belgorod region was a key topic of discussion. Moreover, Kurenkov denounced that as a result of terrorist attacks by Ukrainian forces, citizens have been killed and wounded, while residential buildings and infrastructure had been damaged. And on Thursday, Japan commemorated the 79th anniversary of its unconditional surrender during World War II. Over 4,000 relatives of the deceased attended the ceremony held in Tokyo and organized by the Japanese government, in which messages of pacifism and defense of the international order were sent. The ceremony seeks to honor the more than 2.3 million Japanese military personnel and 800,000 Japanese civilians who died during the conflict. The annual ceremony coincides with the message of surrender of the then Emperor Hirohito after the atomic bombings launched by the United States against Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 6th and 9th, 1945. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.